Okay, let's open it up. We have time. We have some time for some questions, comments. Anybody want to say anything? Yes, sir.
You said you like the fact that the kids jump on their computers.
Yes.
My problem with that is this. Because everything is done on computer now, and those computers only work at the school,
Yes.
we don't get to see as parents what our kids' work is at all. They don't send the homework. You don't see any of their assignments anymore. It's all on their little iPads. We get no information. It's kept from us. Their iPads don't work at home. I have no idea why you think that's great. I have no idea why you think it's great that the kids sit there and type everything out, but they can't write sentences anymore like they used to be able to.
What district are you from?
From Fullerton.
Okay, let me say this. I think that the fact that the test is on the computer speeds up the time to sit on the take the test. Okay, I never said
their work in general.
I wasn't dealing with that. I was dealing with the test. I was dealing with the test. If you have a question with what the district is doing with the computers, go to the district. I'm not being cheeky. Go to the district. That's where the decision is made.
What was the point of you even having all this?
Because I want to hear from the people.
You're not answering anything. You're just sitting here. I mean, look at all this crap.
Well,
you give 2 hours to fire this at us?
Well, I'm sorry if that's what you feel.
Have you ever sat down and tried to do the math the way they tell the kids to do the math? How it doesn't apply at all to the real world? No one building a house, if they're going to add up 3/4 plus 1.5 plus this and that, is going to sit and draw a model for one problem that's bigger than this damn page.
Okay, do we have, yes, thank you.
Yes. Shut up, angry man.
I'm a public school teacher, and I teach Common Core, and I just wanted to give some clarification. When you talk about collaborative, I've been doing that for the last 25 years, so that's a methodology that's always been in the public school, especially with English language learners. That's number one. Number two, the children will not be in a discussion mode and then go take the test. They have to do it independently.
That's right, but it's open-ended time, right, in your district?
Yeah.
Right.
So they do it independently.
Sure.
And what people do not realize is that as you know, in a multiple choice pencil and paper, you get the idea of looking it over, your mind is thinking through. The children are faced off right there at the spot. They have to answer it to go to the next question. So they do not have any mental thought. They're forced to create an answer. And that's not healthy. The third
Are you saying they can't go back and revise while they're taking the test?
No.
Yes.
Excuse me.
No, because I've never.
Excuse me, I'm asking the. Excuse me now. Could you please don't. Okay, thank you. The third part, I'm going to ask people. I know this is an emotional subject, but allow people to ask their questions. And if you have a question, you may ask your turn, and I'll be quiet. The third part is that when we talked about data collecting. On that part about, what's the difference between the two, there's a huge difference in the fact that here you have, a booklet that the kids filled out. Yes, that data is in there, but it's a cumulative information that's given to the state. The difference is now they'll have personal information that will be on the computer that's given to the state. That's the huge difference between a paper and pencil.
So what is the nature of that information? That's the issue.
That's the problem. Why would the state need to know specifically every child's name? Now, my understanding from the training I got and that was given to me by my district is that at the end of the day of 18 years old, when they go apply for a job, all that personal information will be there, and the employer can look it up and see how that child did during their school time. And that's a serious question to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
Did you point? I'm sorry. We're going to... Okay.
What is your point? You're going through pages.
Right.
You haven't said one thing. Common Core is bad for this reason. Common Core is bad for this reason. You're just rambling on.
Well, I appreciate that. I wanted to give you the information that I have worked from, putting it together, and I want to hear what suggestions that you have for changing it.
Sir,
I think most of the people here were under the impression that this was going to be some sort of a discussion where the people here could voice their concerns. Instead, we have been involuntarily in a class
No,
that's confused. Excuse me, I'm not finished.
Sure.
That's confusing, not very informative, because it's not well organized. And I could only say I am so glad I was never in one of your classes.
Well, thank you.
With no disrespect.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
You noticed that the first hour I talked, the second hour for other people as well, so that's
Why
fine.
did you let people talk
Because
first?
I wanted to be sure they understood where I was
Who do
coming
you
from.
think understands anything you said?
Well, I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, ask.
Okay.
Who understands what you said?
I want to take questions. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jack, I appreciate all the information that you've given. It is very complicated. I worked at Costa Community College District for 12 years, so there is a lot of stuff, and he has been pretty forthwith about a lot of things. But on page 12, when they quote section 60605.8, that's one of our favorite little ed codes, which D, I know by memory, is where the international benchmark is coming.
Right.
So I appreciate that you and Trustee Lindholm are writing a paper and are planning to have a vote to go forward, maybe a letter of protest saying that there are some issues. What I think is amazing for all of us who've gone to any school board is that everyone says everything is fine. No one has written any letter saying there are any issues. So if that's what you guys are doing, I think it's great, but I think you're probably the first place in Orange County that has done that. And so 60605.8D, the international benchmark, I would encourage you to write a concern about that too.
Right. Were you here when I gave the citation for Achieve? I'll give it to you later. I just want to be sure you get it.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for your words.
Yeah, and there's just one more thing. I haven't researched it yet. I'm looking to see if the lady's here. New York definitely doesn't like Common Core because of the teachers union and being tied to the test, but my understanding is that the core districts, like Santa Ana, Garden Grove, Long Beach, there are 8 districts that signed a waiver and jumped ahead like New York did, and they're on the hook. Their teachers are on the hook. So I want to verify that, but that looks like interesting information. And you're bringing up a lot of points in here too, but it is really complicated, and it hasn't been, you're seeing it hasn't been shared with the parents. We feel powerless.
Sure. Okay, yes, that's what I hand over here. I'm going to go on this side.
So I think I'm pretty loud. I think one of the questions, you said you had 2 sources on it being internationally benchmarked,
Right.
but you actually didn't state them. So
No,
definitely.
one is about 25 characters, and I'll give it to you when you come up here if my machine is on.
Okay.
But if you go Achieve, capital letters, that should get you started.
Okay. The other thing I will second, I am a teacher in a district here in Orange County and a parent of kids in a different district. And the performance task that you're talking about where the kids go to the computers, as far as I understand, my kids could not go back as well. And
They couldn't revise if they had another thought? Okay.
And the activity that went on beforehand was, I'm not sure I would classify it as, I mean, collaborative, yes. I'm not sure I would classify it as critical thinking. Thanks. That's the word I was looking for. It's not. They're not critical thinking. It's a performance task to bring, or an activity to bring everybody to the same page. So, for example, one of the released questions that they gave us last year was the writing assessment or the writing task on like this chemistry text that the kids had to read. So the kids were supposed to do this activity that, you know, gave them the information so that when they sat down to read it, it would actually make sense. So there's not a lot of critical thinking going on. It's far more of like just a direct instruction of the information that they need to know to be able to comprehend the text that they're supposed to read going along with the writing task.
What grade were you talking about in that example?
I teach high school.
High school, okay.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to ask you about with the times that you posted, and you gave those times on page 37B, and you're talking about how your daughter's son did not have 9 hours of testing, but only had 7. I have a 4th grader in a district here, and I opted her out, and I could care less what the consequences of that are. But here's the thing. Those are estimated times, and it's an untimed test. And my 4th grader has received absolutely no instruction other than what I've given her on keyboarding. So do you want to talk about how long those tests actually took? I'm pretty sure I spoke with the classroom teacher, because since I opted her out and I did not want that teacher on the hook for finding something for my daughter to do, I took her out of school. But I talked to the teacher quite, a ton of times, and I think she spent upwards of 15 hours testing, because it's an untimed test.
So she had some kids doing some over here, but so those kids would be out of the regular instruction while the other kids are getting instruction?
You mean if I opt out, what happens to her?
No, the other kids who were not finished.
I don't know how she organized the classroom. I didn't ask into that. I just went into what the timing was, and just to let you know that the times that you're being given, those 7 hours, when your daughter-in-law tells you that it's 9 hours, she probably wasn't wrong.
Okay.
And then as far as the 11th graders go, when you talk about consequences of not taking the test, if they don't take that test, there's a part of it that used to be on the CST that if they took these 15 questions, it allowed them then to not have to take an English placement test, so that they would immediately be able to enroll in English 100 as a freshman at their college. So now that the CST isn't there, we're trying to play around with how do we do that for those kids? What do we give them? Well, a lot of the schools in Orange County have adopted the ERWC curriculum for their seniors and their juniors, and by taking that and receiving, I think, a grade of a B or higher, they immediately don't have to take that test. So we've usurped that way. And then the other thing that they've done is they can go to the states and or the colleges and take the test right there on campus and be placed.
Do they take it for free?
I'm pretty sure it is. It's a free test.
Because that was not.
But I don't know that for sure. But
it
was my understanding years ago that it was a free test.
Sure. Yes, my friend. Thank you.
I do want to second what Jeff said about the work that you and Linda Lindholm are doing. I encourage you in this regard. With regard to, and this is kind of a follow-up, in light of what has been written about SBAC, and I'm talking about the Rasmussen study, and I think you probably remember my presentation on that. The Rasmussen study calls it a fatally flawed test in the area of math and should not be given. It can actually harm kids. If I had an 11th grader, that would be a main reason for opting out. I just wonder, what is your opinion of the Rasmussen study and the claims that it makes?
I agree with large pieces of it. I think that it's the math piece is what's giving me the most concern. And I think, I have not done a content analysis of the test. Perhaps you have. I have not been at the legal.
Rasmussen has.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right, that's the study.
Relying on that study, I see the points. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a good reason to be concerned about the English language arts. The little bit of information that I've been able to pick up just by talking to parents whose kids have taken the language arts portion of the test is remarkably similar. There's just completely age-inappropriate questions being asked of 5th and 7th graders. I taught English language arts for 32 years in this district right here, Fullerton Union High School. And I'm telling you, the questions that I've heard, my sophomore kids could not answer, and they're giving these kinds of questions to 5th and 7th grade. I also was talking to a high school junior, and he got an essay question that basically asked him to finish a story. Now, this is incomprehensible to me.
Finish a story, did you say?
Finish a story. And it's part of what we're hearing, that there is complete lack of age appropriateness in the curriculum and in the testing. And I think I think the English language arts, we need to investigate that area as well. Anyway, thank you for holding this event.
No, my pleasure, my pleasure. So what I'm taking away from your comments are that when we deal with the testing document that we're writing, that one of the issues that we should deal with is just not the length of time, but the specific questions that they're Age appropriate by topic. Right. I say that, I missed you now. Thank you. Yes, I saw, yes, in the back there.
I wanted to mention something about what you said about on page 38. You said there wasn't a big difference between the SBAC and the CST. But I know Ms. Gutierrez kind of mentioned it. There is a big difference.
So tell me about it. Tell me what it is.
The CTS, it was aggregate information. So where SBAC now, it's longitudinal. So the state, the federal government, these companies that are going to get access to this information, they will know that little Jimmy didn't do well on this test. Little Jimmy has a problem if all these children who may have special needs, they're gonna see all of that. So that's a huge, huge red flag, especially in this day and age where privacy is such an issue and we get hacked so much. So I understand that you're wanting solutions, you're wanting suggestions. I'm here today, I have two friends who weren't able to come. They are more well-versed in this. But there is an online privacy policy. Now, because SBAC has become a business and our children's data is going into that data bank, we can use the online privacy policy because they are not adhering to it. And that's how we can go after them to get this out. Because it's not just about the standards. Yes, the standards are a huge issue, but the fact that they will have my daughter's information forever, and they can judge my daughter for what she did in 3rd through 11th grade is ridiculous because you know how children are. We love them to death, but at the same time,
Could you please do me a favor and give me the citation of that aggregation? If you could find that for me?
Sure.
That documents, that would be most helpful.
Sure. How can I send it so that I know you get it?
Okay, well, see me at the end of the session, if you can stay. Okay, my pleasure. Sure. I saw, yes, well, hello.
Hello. I'm so thankful for all that everybody's been doing at the Orange County Board. One of the reasons that we come to you is because you're actually listening to us. We don't just come to you. We go to other school boards around the county. We go and listen to everything that's being put on by the school boards, but it's being put on by everybody. We've been up to Sacramento. We've gone many, many places. We're trying to find somebody that will listen, and I appreciate that you are. I would challenge you to do a little more. I know that you got a load of research in the fall, a lot more than you probably have had the time to dig into and read. I would highly recommend to you as a nurse to dig into Gary Thompson's information.
He was one of the panelists?
Yes,
That Gary?
he was. And I would also, I believe Lydia may have brought some information as well on children's brains and giving them inappropriate developmentally. I'm sure you're familiar with Eric Erickson and the stages of development. And when they're at that age between 6 and 11 years old, you know, they're going to feel very inferior as they're failing at tasks that are being given to them that they cannot handle. And it goes from things like reading on a device, which is the way they're going. They're developed libraries, digital libraries. We're not going to be reading that book where you feel a book, you feel the page, you go through the book. We're reading on devices. It actually changes their reading. I know you've probably heard me say this before, and I believe it's in his documentation, which you have. It actually shortens them, and they're reading at a lower grade level. They will cap off at around a 3rd to 5th grade reading level when you teach children, as well as not using phonics, which they're using more of a whole word technique versus smattering in a little phonics later. Doing that, actually, you look at their brain scans and their brains are damaged, and you can't recover that by going back and throwing phonics at them later. So those are some real concerns as a parent, and I understand your outrage, sir. I mean, that kind of stuff, you know, makes a parent raw when they feel that something is being done wrong to their child, and I get it. We've done a lot of digging and researching, as you well know, over the year, and these are some things that are really concerning
on other levels, not bad math. Honestly, to me at this point, I can make up the bad math myself if I need to. But it's not just that. It's this deeper thing that is going to these young-aged kids. Mary Calamia, did I say her name right? Another great one to look at, and I don't know if there's research in there, but we can get it to you easily.
Sure.
These are very concerning things. Developmentally inappropriate, that's what we're talking about, and that these kids are not going to be, they can't critically think. That was another one. You talked about it. I'm a critical care nurse. I'm all about critical thinking. Kids at that age, their brains cannot do that, and it actually is damaging to them to try to force it on them.
So are you, and I really respect
The
this.
right brain talking to the left
Sure.
brain, yes.
Did you have the same concerns in the previous testing modality?
I've not been a fan. I'm not a fan of testing.
Okay, okay.
stand
No,
by
I
that.
just was
I'm
wondering
very
if you had
honest
the
with
same,
you.
if
But-
you're seeing research that you could.
But that's going, and yeah. So needless to say, protecting kids, you know, the answer to a lot of us might be at this, and it can't, everybody can't do it, is to, you know, take care of it, pull your kids, do what you can with them. But we don't want that. We want a functioning public school system because that's going to be the next generation that's going to be leading our country. And right now, not satisfactory. It's one thing to not be good and to just be, but this is actually damaging, and that's really a concern. You know, and I'm sure you want kids to learn.
Absolutely.
How to think, not what to think, and that is a huge concern.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Yes, Barry, you've been patient.
Hang on.
Here we go. Thank you, Katie. Right behind you.
Oh.
Thank you, Barry.
Yes, thank you very much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it, your time. I just wanted to go over a few things. One item was the math questions.
The what?
The math,
Yes.
math questions under Common Core. I have a fourth grader. And he brings home
You're in Fullerton?
Yes.
Okay.
In Laguna Road School, which is a blue ribbon school that did things the old-fashioned way, and everybody talks about how wonderful it was, and then they just changed everything, which makes absolutely no sense, but that's another topic. Math questions. He gets questions, and it says things like a math paragraph. If Johnny had 5 apples, whatever, and it says simplify there'll be a couple of equations. Simplify the equation. You know what my wife does? And she's talked to the teacher. She tells my son, solve the problem. None of this simplify junk. What does that mean? Are you going to be in a job where you have to do some math and your boss is going to say simplify it? You'll get fired. So what's the benefit of these things? They just wasteful amounts of time, and they're not teaching our kids the basics, and that's really, really scary. The other thing that you haven't touched upon is that there were there's only 3 scholars who wrote standards that were asked to validate the standards. 2 of them were Stotsky, was for ELA, and the other one was Milgram Stanford.
Right.
They have been touring the country for the last 3 years telling how bad Common Core is, that they've never been benchmarked. As far as benchmarking is, I've been to 3 meetings now with our superintendent of the Fullerton School District on this subject. The last one was in the middle of October, where he claimed that they're internationally benchmarked.
Right.
So the question was asked, prove it. Oh, let's have a meeting. That was in mid-October. It is now turning to July. I'm still waiting for that information from our superintendent. My guess is it doesn't exist, or else I would have seen it, but he claimed it. That does not speak well for a school district, that when they claim something and they tell you they're going to get right back to you, and 6 or 7 months later, you haven't heard squat. That's what we're dealing with. You know, it's one thing to have a difference of opinion, but when people look like they're not being straightforward with you, that are running a school district, you got a problem.
Sure.
And we have a problem here in Fullerton. The other thing I was told at a meeting at our school, Laguna Road School, that underneath the Common Core testing, if your son or daughter does poorly on one, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're not feeling well. There could be a million reasons why somebody does poorly. They're automatically, and we were told this is what was going to happen, they're automatically going to dumb down the next test.
Who is they, Barry? I'm sorry.
They dump down the questions in the next test.
Yeah.
Yes, if you do poorly on an exam, under Common Core, they're going to dumb down the next set of testing for your child. Now, that is not a way to get excellence out of your child, especially because, again, the reason why that child did poorly on that exam might have nothing to do with their capability or competence. It just might have been a bad day. They might have felt ill. They might have been in a bad mood. There could be a million reasons. But they're going to automatically, that's the real question here, they're going to automatically dumb down the test on the next go-round. Everybody that is in the teaching field that I've talked to, oh yeah, that's the Common Core language. Yeah, it's difficult. Kids don't understand it. We had people talk to the superintendent, kids that are A students in math coming home crying because they don't understand, or they're doing poorly now because they don't understand this simplification and explain your answers. It doesn't make sense. One other thing, collaboration. My understanding is what's happening in collaboration, it could be a good thing, it's a teaching method, but what's happening a lot is you have 4 kids, young kids getting up and talking about it among themselves. If 3 of the kids got the wrong answer and your son has the right answer, and this has happened to my own child, they get voted down, the teacher's not there, and they go with the wrong answer. So how are you learning something when the kid that has the right answer is overruled because he's not the majority? Again, this is called dumbing down our children and dumbing down our educational system. And it's terrible, and it is being pushed by the federal government because it's called grant money. California got $700 million to take on Common Core. It wasn't an independent decision. They said, you want the money? Take it on. New York State got over $1 billion to take it on early. So to say that this was, the state just decided out of the goodness of the heart. No, money talks, and the federal government was handing it out in bushels. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. MJ, did you have a question? Right there? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's come over here.
Well, I wanted to make 3 quick points. One on the percentage of the change from our previous standards to the Common Core standards. They're putting out this statistic that it's about 90% the same as before. And I can tell you with a surgeon's scalpel and 10% change to me, you could call me Caitlin. Okay? So 10% is a statistical fallacy in that what they're doing is they're still teaching math, they're still teaching English. What they've done is they've recategorized these things, they've pushed them into different grades under the Common Core. So what ends up happening is the same standards may be there, but they've been put into inappropriate places and they've been moved around. So you still have 90%. But the 10% that we're removing is the inappropriate stuff. It's the skill sets where they're driving kids on how to do this collaborative thinking so that they have the same mindset and they come to the same answer. So we're not dealing with facts. We're dealing with collaborative answers that may not have any foundation in facts. So as parents, we want our kids to have some rote memorization. We want them to understand facts and figures because that is important. And a recent study just came out that talked about how when you do rote memorization in the early ages, that the recall for the kids later in like 4th through 6th grade in elementary school becomes much more quick in their recall and their memory when they've done the rote memorization early on. So teaching kids at that young age, this is right and this is wrong and this is a fact and this isn't, is exactly what they need. And it disturbs me when we want to get answers from 2 and 2nd and 3rd graders. We should be giving 2nd and 3rd graders answers. We've got it backwards. The other thing is that has disturbed a lot of the parents here is we've asked questions at school boards, at the Orange County Board of Education, and we often haven't been given an answer other than, well, this is the law, this is the statute. And what we found with the Smarter Balance is that while there are laws to protect the data of the children within the state of California, the data goes to the Smarter Balance Consortium, which has a legal agreement with the federal government. So our data goes through a back channel to the federal government, to Arnie Duncan, And yet all the administrative people that we talk to say, well, this isn't happening because the state of California has laws against it. We are having to do the homework for the people that are running the cities and the counties and the state. That is a very big concern to us. So I know that you want solutions and not just complaints. What I would personally like is a number of resolutions that address these concerns that the board can vote up or down on simply to agree or disagree with the facts that parents are bringing forward, so that we can then go to our local school boards, hold up that paper and say the Orange County Board of Education, well, they can't change this on their own, well, they can't move to unilaterally make these decisions, they agree with us. And we will then use that as weight to get the local boards to see the power in that, to then start moving in the local districts to agree with the parents as well. Thank you.
Hi, I'm MJ Noor. I used to be concerned about Common Core. Now I'm worried. I'm worried for several reasons. Students that are having a troubled time in school will feel depleted and extremely upset over their test scores. Students that are excelling will feel depleted and extremely upset over their low test scores. I have an 11th grader, just took the ACT exam, got a perfect 36. Took the SAT exam, got a 2350. He's 14 years old. I opted him out of Common Core test, and seriously, Dr. Bedell, I didn't want him to go in and take a test and come out and feel upset. This is very important. To encourage a child to do well will really cause them to do well. Once you begin to deplete that energy in a child, you will have a hard time to regain it. So I urge all of you to stay focused on your children's feelings and how they're handling things. Secondly, Common Core will affect the English as a second language student. It'll affect the slow student. How do these children try to achieve if they're going to be slotted from the first test? And thirdly, sir, and Dr. Bedell, I want to thank you for having this because, frankly, I've gone to several board meetings for the high school board, and I know Dr. Singer is here, and I'm thrilled to see him. I've never heard a discussion on Common Core. Never. You're the only one, and you should be commended for that. I also want to say, if we allow Common Core to stay as it is, we're not going to find that our students are not excelling. We're going to find that our universities are going to be taken over by foreign students. We're going to matriculate our children from high school into into junior college, and that will delay their advancements in completing their education. Why are our students not ready to go to regular college? This is a crazy idea to think that they spend 4 years in high school and they cannot compete in a university. We cannot insult our teachers by saying our teachers are not bringing these children up to standards. Our teachers do an extraordinary job. To change the focus on an 11th grader is doing a damage that I believe was the reason that I opted my child out. I ask you one question, Dr. Bedell. When you look at your people here in Fullerton and you hear the concerns, would it be smart to take this decision out of the board's hand and let it go to a judge? Let children have their day in court. Let the parents have their day in court. Do it the American way. Because we don't have the power to make that change and that difference. You have the power, sir, to allow it to go forward and let a judge decide on this. I urge all of you to think about the children. We really don't care about multinational corporations. We really don't. We care about our babies. I care about my son. I care about all the children here that their parents are taking an evening out to listen to what's going on. And I again want to thank you for having this meeting, and I respect your integrity in bringing these issues forthright to everyone. However, I would like you to take that step forward that every leader should have that fearless, motion in them that says, we have an issue, let it be heard, and let it be heard in the appropriate setting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, MJ. Sonia, is that you in the back? Hi, Sonia, you have a question?
I do.
You do, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much for holding this forum. I want to say...
Sonia lives right across from me. She's a very loud neighbor, hot rods, and... Not really.
Hot rod. I became a citizen in 1996, an American citizen, and I love this nation. I just think we're the greatest country, and I'm proud in a wonderful way, because I really believe that as one nation under God, that made us with our foundation. One of my biggest concerns with Common Core is, have you ever seen that Healthy Kids tests that they give the kids in the different grades, Healthy Kids tests? I have read through several of those questions, and I believe that the government has usurped so much of our liberties, our freedoms. Education was never to be a federal issue. It was to be local. Okay, all the powers not given to the federal government are kept by the state. And this Common Core also was not voted by the people. It has circumvented every type of checks and balances that we've had. And the privacy issue, some of those questions are very disturbing, very disturbing. The government has no right to infringe on our privacy the way it does. And I really, have you ever seen those? You have. Would you like to speak to them? I don't think
I don't have them in front of me, Sonia, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, they're easy to obtain because they're in the internet and
Sure.
They're easy. Some of the questions are very alarming. I believe if some of you parents here know some of the questions, they go into, are you a heterosexual, homosexual, transsexual? We're talking elementary. The questions, the way that they're leading them, I know what the Supreme Court did on Friday. It doesn't matter. They can make something right, but it's not moral. It is immoral no matter what the government or who says. That's what God says.
Sonia, could you help me before you finish? I appreciate this. Where do you find this Healthy Kids test as it relates to the Common Core?
It's on wested.org.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. I had not seen the stuff I looked in the Common Core. I had not seen it in the Common Core per se.
It's all part of this new testing material that is coming.
That piece I get, Sonia.
And just the whole thing also with the whole sexuality, because there's a lot of questions there that breaks down the modesty, the division that it's supposed to be between young boys and young girls. It's like, and there's a lot of perversions, and I think as parents, that's one of our biggest concern is protecting our children's innocence.
The innocence, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure, of course, Sonia. Thank you for coming. Dave, you had a question? Yeah, sorry.
I was reading page 40, which was on the SBAC, and talking about social emotional learning, and this is a concern. But as the gentleman in the beginning, he was talking about the fact that you cannot, if you're on the iPad, you cannot get access. Well, school districts are implementing poorly. Definitely every device should be accessible to the teachers. I've seen that Orange County Board of Ed, I saw a teacher come in and complain. I think it was Tustin or Orange type of district. But on the social emotional learning, I was kind of doubtful about that, but Calabasas School District, they bought facial recognition software so that the parents cannot even turn on the device. So why would you have, and there's a document about, help me out, it's Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance, U.S. Department of Ed, and it looks like crazy stuff, but why are they buying? My suggestion is you to investigate this. Why are they buying facial recognition software? And the other thing on this, on the SBAC test, I met with Kurt Sewer at Newport Mesa Unified District. Can't remember his title. I think he's Assistant Superintendent for K-6. He was very frustrated with the SBAC test because when they did the pilot program last year, they got no feedback. The SBAC test is a private test. So the educators who are doing it, they don't even know what's in it. They're just getting hearsay. What you're hearing, the idea, I mean, I can understand the theory. I mean, I used to be in charge of IT. If I passed a certain question, ask me a harder question, ask me a harder question until I can't take it. And then you find out, well, maybe that's the top. And the same thing, if it's too hard, then start going down. Well, this is another thing that maybe you could write and investigate, is to ask, has that SBAC test been validated? Does it test what it says it's going to do? And the information that we're hearing is no, because it's, from an IT perspective, implementing systems, all of this is untested. We would normally do this in development. We'd do a development system, we would do a test system on a limited population, then we would implement live. Right now, we're developing and testing as we implement. So that's kind of a challenge on that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to come up. Yes, again, we're going to go on the second. First-time speaker. Have you spoken before, Ms. Levins? Why don't you start here? First-time speaker.
Oh, thanks. I would just speak as a mom who does the homework every night of a fourth grader, and I have a college education from a private women's college. I'm quite educated, and yet fourth grade math, it's written so poorly grammatically that you can't even understand the question, first of all. And secondly, it's so convoluted that I just say, I don't know. And how do you tell that to a fourth grader who's looking at you saying, I don't know, Mom? Well, it's insane. And I do what my husband said. I cross through, not only do I say not simplify, I cross through it and red ink, and I say solve it, and I put my initials on it, and I send it back to the teacher. And I said, math has that exact answer. It's not a maybe this and a maybe that. There's an exact answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Science. The NGSA is coming up, Next Generation Science Standards. Now, I've been a member of the American Association of Physics Teachers for over 50 years. I've taught for like 13 years, and the rest of the time was in industry and Air Force and whatever. And we're going to have the exact same problem with the Next Generation Science Standards. They are unteachable. The California standards in physics were teachable. You could come right in and you could do a nice job with the students to help them learn. But with the cross-cutting and all the other different things, I've heard some undercurrents here already in terms of people having science problems, teaching, was it chemistry? We have a chemistry teacher in here in high school, and you're not a chemistry? Well,
CLA teacher, but we had to teach chemistry so the kids could take the writing part.
all right. There's a good example of what's happening. People who are unqualified, I don't mean that's not put down. People who are unqualified are teaching these things. The teachers who are going to be doing this in high school are supposed to cross-cut between physics, chemistry, and biology. So no matter what you've got here, it's even going to be worse at the high school level. So, be careful and please watch out what is happening in the NGSS area also.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, yes, second time speaker, first time speaker there.
I just want to say that I have a little bit of a different perspective than some of the people here. I homeschool my children, and so therefore through their charter school they were required to take kind of a pre-test before they actually went to go take their test at a facility. And so the pre-test, I had to sit and watch. I've got a 4th grade daughter and a 6th grade son. And I'm very opinionated on Common Core, but I try to keep that aside, and I sat and watched my kids take the tests. And going along with what MJ said about, you know, kind of knowing your kid and seeing, and I understand that you want to know like kind of what the results are and everything. I can tell you as a parent, I sat and watched my kids take the test. I sat and watched my son take the language arts portion of it. He started out reading it. It was so complicated. It was a screen that had 2 different passages. If you had it on paper, which we all did, I'm sure, you have it on paper and it's, you know, here's this article, compare and contrast them. I'm all for that. No, on the computer it is, this is passage 1, this is passage 2, and there's a tab up at the top. Passage 1 has got page 1, page 2, page 3. Passage 2 has page 1, page 2, page 3. So then the first question says, in passage 1 on page number 2, what does it say about blah, 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 blah? Then the next question says, in passage 2 on page number 3, what does it say, what is the summary of what passage 2 is trying to say? And then it goes back to passage 1. Okay, as an adult, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, they gotta go back. That's not testing what they know, that's testing can you follow a page number at the top, right? I mean, that's completely absurd and ridiculous. So I watch my son taking this test, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna last for a really long time. Sure enough, he starts just guessing. Literally, because I'm watching him, he's not reading anything. He's just marking a question and just, you know, clicking it off and ding, 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 whatever. So he gets done with it, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be great. It's going to come back. He doesn't know anything. I know what he knows. I'm not worried about what the test is because I too opt my kid out, my children out. But he gets it back. He's great. He's made all kinds of progress in language arts this year. He's made progress not because he put any effort into the test. My daughter had the exact same experience. They both read Edgar Allan Poe in elementary school. That's what they were tested on. My daughter was completely, she is very patient. She will sit and do anything. She got done. We do not teach Common Core math because we homeschool. She knows how to do all the manipulatives that is supposed to be what was at the base of Common Core. She understands ones, tens, all of that. She herself, the second question that she got to, she's like, if they would just ask me a question so I could understand it, I could answer the question, but the answer's not here. I'm like, yes, that's like 5 questions down. Just keep going with what you're doing. So I just want you to understand that when you're saying, you know, what is the test going to do, when she's saying that her son is doing great and she opts him out, I can tell you that from the other perspective, the test goes to what your child says. So my kids happen to be good guessers. Not because they read anything, but because they just guessed. That doesn't show what they know. So the results of the tests are not showing what the kids truly know how to do. Yeah, there is absolutely no validation whatsoever. There were a lot of political things my daughter had to read. She did the opt-out test, but still had to go and take a paper and pencil test. There was an article that she had to answer questions on a speech by Obama in it, which I don't think that any political affiliation should be in the testing that's going on. I also just want to share that with my experience from school teachers, I've got a lot of family that teach in public education, most of my friends teach in public education, and one of my biggest concerns is that the kids are not being taught how to think critically, they're being taught how to answer questions. And my biggest concern is that when my kids grow up and 20 or 30 years from now when they have kids, I want my kids to be able to stand up and say, I disagree with this, or I'm challenging this, and I want them to be able to be a part of a conversation like this, but that's not what we're raising our young kids to do now, our children to do, is to think about what it is they're learning. It's just, am I getting the right answer? Am I getting the right answer? Am I getting the right answer? That's not how life is. Nobody gives me the right answer when I have to go and make a decision on my finances or on my job. Nobody's going to give me the right answer. I have to be able to think about that. And one of my best teachers in high school actually was a history teacher that made me say, our whole class, you could not say, I don't agree with that. He'd say, why? And we would all sit there while you had to say why you disagreed with something. That's how we used to learn. That's not what the kids are learning. That's not what this test is doing. It is taking everything backwards, and it just is really concerning, and I hope that, that you will look at what's actually happening, not some of what you may be being presented.
This is very helpful as we get ready for the next writing piece. I want to take, I saw another first time. First time?
Yeah.
First time.
Yes. I would like to say this is a result of federal intrusion. This is what happens when we give control over to the government. See, the government in Washington, they can't possibly know what's best for your child. They're in Washington. They're in the bubble there. And the Founding Fathers had always intended for education to be controlled by the states. And as I'm researching this Common Core, I've concluded that we're like the victims, the parents, the children. You complain to your teacher, your principal, administration, the boards, and you feel like you're the bad guy. And we are the ones that are doing all the research. We are the ones that are finding out what is flawed with this system. And our children are the victims. So all about, and I'm going to direct this to you, what can you do? Can you not fund Common Core? Can you not fund it?
Every district, no. The answer to that question is no. If you do not fund Common Core as the tie to the state standards, the county would not approve your control.
Well, okay, what's the worst scenario? What would happen if you said, we do not want to fund, we will fund everything else, but we, like what Mr. Hammer was saying, we can go back to the 1997,
right.
The golden standards, as this gentleman was saying back here, the chemistry was good in 1997. Why can't we go back to those standards, which we know is true and tested? Why are we doing this experiment on our children?
I want to answer your question. The first thing that happens is that the board, ultimately the board, the district gets taken over by the state. And in the case of Orange County, the first part is, this is the very minor part. The first, if the board did not approve that budget yesterday, as of tomorrow morning, the superintendent does not get a salary or benefits. The board members do not get their small stipend. Within a few days of that, the county department is not allowed to do a payroll for its several thousand employees. They cannot do a payroll. So that becomes a whole collective bargaining issue, a scheduling issue. They cannot do a payroll.
But, okay, I know there's so much fear in this about the money. I know it's all tied to the money. That's why we are where we are, because of the money. They're all so afraid of losing the money. Why not have courage and just stand up and do something? Do something. I'm even begging you to do something. Why can't California be the state to truly overturn Common Core? Because it is federal, it is not local. And as far as Indiana, no, that it is still Common Core. It's just renamed Indiana State Standards. And the other thing about the Privacy Act, why is it that the FERPA law was amended right before Common Core? The FERPA law was to protect all our rights as far as data. And that was amended to be weakened. Now that's an interesting point. Why was it weakened? If they are really concerned about protecting that data, you wouldn't weaken the law, you would strengthen it. And one more point, as I was doing my research, I was reading that there were stakeholders involved, and I thought, who are those stakeholders? Well, they're the superintendents are stakeholders. And also, when they were discussing the Race to the Top money, there is some information that was discussed, and some of those things that were discussed that were concerns at the time, which I guess they didn't have the courage to go along with it, is they were questioning the math. They were questioning the math. They knew it was lower. And there was also a note stated in there, what do we do about the gifted children? And they had no answer. What are we going to, and I was even told that myself personally, because my son, the fifth grader last year, he always had A's in math, straight A's. And I called the district, my local district in Yorba Linda, And they had told me, I'm sorry, but it's the gifted children, the children who do well in school are not going to do well with Common Core. So my point is, they knew all this. So why not fight? Why isn't there any courageous people anymore standing up? We need courageous leaders. Please be that courageous leader. Thank you.
In my closing remarks, I'll address that because that's very important. I want to have any first-timers, then let's just, here, this is the first time over here. We have 5 more minutes, so I promised you 9 o'clock, so.
Hi.
Yes, sir, welcome.
I'm in Laguna Hills.
Laguna Hills?
Laguna Hills.
You slept all the way from Laguna Hills to Fullerton?
Yes, sir. I got lost and I got here, but I got here.
I am impressed.
Oh. Sorry. She motivated me to speak. I come from a country where nobody wants to do anything about the problems. And nobody seems to be courageous, and everybody seems to be complacent. But I don't expect that from us here. I sit in my house, I have a 5-year-old, and I haven't even put him in school. I'm just starting out, looking into Common Core, and all of this frightens me, to be honest with you. Now, I'm a computer programmer, I'm an interpreter for the court system, and I know things. I know how to teach a 5-year-old. And the things that I see from my friends who have their kids in school, I'm just telling you, the future of the people that I guess represent because they couldn't be here, their decision is that they're not going to get their kids in institutional school. They're going to do homeschooling. So that's from my point of view.
That's a loss to the district.
I guess it's a loss for them.
It is a loss to the
So
district.
they have already made up their mind that they're not going to put their kids in school until they know better or until things change.
Sure.
So I urge everybody to have courage and stand up because they work for us. We don't work for them.
Sure. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3. No, we have a first-timer in the back. You have your first-timer too? Okay, we got a first-timer in the back. We have time for these. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to piggyback on what you were talking about. I was at the board meeting the other day when Mr. Hammond made the amendment to not include. Why can't you do that? You'd be passing the budget. I don't understand that.
That was not what, we never saw that motion before. That motion was not vetted with us before, so we knew what we could do the research on the implications of that.
You're under a timeline. That's just what politicians do. And, you know, you could have just said, do it, take a risk. What would have been so bad? Oh, everybody else would have got paid because they would have had their money and everything. It was just that one little portion. Take a risk. You have friends there. Take some risk. We all take risks. When we don't have money to do something, we figure it out somehow. And I know we're not the only ones that are around here that wouldn't get paid. But please, sure. I sat there and I was so disappointed in everybody when that went by. Mm-hmm. Because by this time, even though that's the first time that amendment came up, you should have known about Common Core and the effects and everything. Evidently, Mr. Hammond did because he proposed it. So I was just really disappointed.
I appreciate that. Yes, over here, first time. We have a first time here.
I have the microphone. Dr. Bedell, hi.
Hi, how are you? You're in the Golden Hill catchment area?
Yes,
right.
Yes. I do want to thank you for having this. I feel kind of responsible. I'm the one who handed you all the petitions and the letters, and I just kind of would like to make more of an observation. I've read all those letters that we've given you. I'm listening to what people are saying. I look at this packet. I don't see anything in this packet that tells me that Common Core is good for my children. You listed one example, maybe the drought example. I can see that kind of being good, but I haven't heard anything that is. Oh, sorry, what was that? But I wanted you to listen to those letters. Those are real people. These people feel like this is very, very harmful to their children. And I know that you can stand up and fight this. And like MJ says, you can take this to court. I think that you've had that option to make that decision. And let it go to court. And I just thank you for this.
First of all, I appreciate you getting me the information from my constituents. And thank you for that. My purpose of doing this tonight, and I know of no other meeting like this in California or in the United States, okay? And I wanted to be responsive to my constituents, and thank you for getting me that information, and I've gotten some subsequent material, letters. My purpose for this was putting together this packet so you could see the information I get as a board member. It was an information packet to see that this is what I get told. Now, meetings like this are board meetings where our friends come, as what we're hearing from the public. That was the purpose of this session, from the way I crafted it. Okay, now, first timer, and yes, over here. We got two first timers.
Thank you for being here. Okay,
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. I gave up years of teaching to be with my kids, and gave up pulled them out of regular school to homeschool them. So I gave up my career for that. And it was elementary school, so I homeschooled my kids. Instead of having a class of 36, I gave them a little bit more one-on-one to be able to teach them to read and do math, etc. Okay, then I put them back in high school, later middle school, high school. And now they're in college, finishing up high school, and so I'm ready to go back into teaching, but I hate this Common Core. I don't want to teach Common Core. Where do I go get a job? I don't want to teach it. Can I teach your kids? Right. But where? Where do I go?
Some private schools may give you options.
But who can afford that?
No, oh, you mean the salary?
Very few.
Yeah, that's true. I want to do, I just want to be sure that we got all first timers. Yes, sir. Thank you, Barry.
My name is John Briano, Doc, and I sent you a letter, pretty scathing one. You know, these folks have been in this, in your face for a couple years, and I want to know why you're still exercising these people. I believe their points were well made many times over. I believe you have a duty to your constituents to look at what they're alleging. I can tell you, folks, that this is the race to the bottom. It's not the race to the top. There's not a Common Core involved here. I'll break this down into what's going on, folks. This is a federal power grab of our educational system. This is a dossier developing, algorithm developing, database providing network for the powers that be. They're going to figure out how your kids think, what makes them tick. They can figure out who the dissenters are going to be, who to watch, who to keep under their thumb, and who's going to do what, when, and where for those people that feel like making it their pastime to control it all. I could tell you that I took my kids out a couple years ago. It's no small feat for me to drain my savings to hire somebody to come into my house as we pay my property tax bill that looks like a Vegas bar tab to fund all of this. There are children that are suffering. You know this. People have been in your board meetings and they've told you about the homework meltdowns. You have a duty to look into what the heck is going on. I've looked at the math. One of the reasons I took my kid out was because I can't do the math, Doc. I got a chemistry degree, I got a biology degree, I had calculus my senior year of high school. I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. And if I can't do a third grade math problem, how the heck is my kid going to do it? I'm here to tell you that what you're involved in right now has a tremendous responsibility, and you have a tremendous moral responsibility. I don't know what motivated you to call this meeting. I don't know if it's self-preservation for your seat on this board, and you're trying to diffuse this situation by throwing us this packet of information that has no relevance to the stuff that you've been hearing for the past year and a half. The reality is this stuff is brain damaging our kids, and that is a fact. This stuff is designed to break the backs of the up-and-comers, to move the cream to the top, because they're the ones that the government's going to watch, because the kids that can withstand this curriculum are brilliant. And they're going to make it through it, because they can reverse engineer stuff in their minds, and these are the people that are going to be on the list. They're going to go work for the think tanks. They're going to develop the weapons and all the stuff that's going to be used against us, much like this curriculum is. I want to ask you a point-blank question, Doc, and that is, are you familiar with Project Inkwell? Okay, for the record, you're not. Okay, now,
what is it?
Project Inkwell is a symposium of corporate interests that have written a manifesto as to how to direct education, and the aorta of the manifesto is a wireless delivery system in the classroom, so I'm not going to talk about that here tonight. But what I will ask you to do, Doc, is get us out of this. We put you on that board, And we got voices, we got connections. I got a website, fullertoninformer.com. And if you can't deliver the goods, we got to get you off that board and get somebody on there that can. Thank you.
Okay, one quick point.
Of course, very quick.
One quick point.
I know we're getting there.
One quick point.
Yes.
It was alluded to already. Two of your fellow board members want to file a lawsuit.
Yes.
They need your vote.
Right.
We need your vote so that what these people have said, to take the leadership, to join them and get a majority, so that the Orange County Board of Education can sue the state on Common Core. And you can make it happen, sir. What's your answer? What's your answer?
My answer, I've investigated that. The preliminary cost to the county is $1 million. There is nobody who is...
What about the cost of our children?
Wait a minute, Barry. Let me finish, please. I didn't interrupt you. The preliminary cost, $1 million. Nobody has indicated that they would be willing to partner with us, though it makes if you look historically in the lawsuits like this, without friends joining, they don't.
Chickens.
No. Yes, you have a question?
May I? My heart goes out to all these good people who care so much about their children. They're here, they're pouring their hearts out, they're knocking themselves out to give their children the best education. My younger son said, "Thank you, you put all your money into our brains," which we did. I feel terrible that you are hogtied. You cannot get out from under the Marxists who have designed this disaster, foisted it on you, and now you're here saying, please, get us out. There is no getting out, because the people that cooked up the scheme want to change the country. They want to hogtie you and your children to do what they want. A handful of people had control, and you could see it. There are brochures that will name them. One man is not even a citizen. One woman is a Marxist professor at Stanford, and the others are in it for the money. They are Marxists who want to destroy America, and the best way to do it is to brainwash the little kids. No one has talked about this. The history is horrible. It's anti-American. There's nothing in it that says, I love America. And this nonsense about white privilege. We earned white privilege. My mother was an Italian immigrant. She came to this country legally. She had to have, her parents had to have, a job, a sponsor, a medical exam, a legal exam, no money from taxpayers. She went to work in a factory when she was 14 years old. So anybody that says to me, I have white privilege, I say my mother earned it. There's no privilege involved, and the same applies to all of you. Your families earned what you have, and now these people come in, oh, they have to have college the next day. They don't save. They come in illegally, and Fullerton University has a recruiting center to put them in a seat meant for a U.S. citizen. You people are wonderful, but you're letting Marxists run the show. And these people on the board, I'm not impressed, not impressed.
Okay, we have, Darcy. Say, sure. First time over here, please. John, sir.
I just have one question. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I served in Al-Qaim, Iraq for a year.
Thank you.
And I want to bring one point that I want you to understand is perfectly clear to me from just a year. The way you control a society is by children.
Yep.
The average education level in Iraq, in Al-Qaim, Iraq, that's my area of expertise, if you could call a year that, is that they get taught at a first grade level exactly what they're supposed to say, not what they're supposed to learn, not to critical think. They don't even interpret the Book of Islam the way that it's meant to be interpreted. They pick and choose what they want the kids to learn. And then the kids grow up through a generation to learn a specific thing. This is exactly that in an American method.
That's right.
That's all this is. It sickens
brainwashing.
me. I mean, people died. And to say that $1 million is not enough to do that out of the billions and trillions of dollars that we spend,
Taxpayer money.
I urge you, if all you have to do is say, you know what, let's give them a chance. Be the third person.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell, for having us here and listening to us. So I wanted to say two things. You said it was going to cost the county $1 million, but my understanding was the Pacific Justice Institute volunteered to pro bono take the case, and I think you should take them up on that. I mean, that's a big call to order, and if they're volunteering, I say jump on it.
I will check that. I will check
yes.
that. Lydia gave me the same note, so yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that, and then I wanted to jump on board with you. I think there's a lot of problems with the curriculum, but I don't think that's the biggest problem. I think the biggest problem is this is a government takeover of families' rights to decide how their children should be educated. And I think, you know, they can change the curriculum. And maybe there's parts of it that are even good now. I don't know. But if we get someone crazy in office in 5 years that's another Hitler, what are they going to do to our kids? Because this is actually how Hitler worked. I mean, he started with the kids' education, and he distorted their thinking, and then you're raising up an army to go against Jews and all sorts of crazy ideas, and I don't like that. I don't like the control they're trying to take over our children, and I think it's supposed to be left at the local and state level. And I know that the states signed on, but they were coerced to sign on, and it all has to do with the money. And I think you said something about the bill that was trying to separate that. I think it would be good if you and your board address that. And I mean, you're putting it back on us, sort of, I feel like. Well, we elected you to represent us. So can you do something with that?
Let me tell you, first of all, we played a key role in getting it in there. We intend to follow up on it, and I would be absolutely confident it's going through the process that we will endorse that decoupling. You're talking about the Alexander, I'm talking about the decoupling piece, Lydia. The decoupling piece.
What is the name of that bill?
You know, there's a reference to it in your packet. You can see I highlighted a section of it for you in your packet.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, well, yes, one more question, and then we have to close, and I'm going to make a statement.
So one thing, I was there at the board meeting when Brad Dacus told you that he would take on that,
right.
that lawsuit. And I think there's two things I want to say. One is just basically that we need to move fast on this. I mean, my district and the district my kids are in are going to be piloting books next year. And after that pilot, districts are going to be spending boatloads of money, you know, on Common Core texts. And if then a year later we overturn it, what are we going to do then? You know, I mean, that's going to be a huge financial disaster. But I just really want to end to say to you that I am the ELA teacher who had to teach chemistry to my students at one point. And one of the things as we moved into trying, you know, when we're reading the literature is always kind of developing a theme. And I stand there with all of my students, all the different levels, who, by the way, it's ESL that I teach, or ELD. And one of the things that we do almost in every class and level is kind of give that, you know, read stuff to get to a definition of what is courage. And at the end of it, I feel like the students kind of come to this agreement that courage is in the face of being afraid, doing the right thing, knowing that there are going to be consequences for that behavior. And we look through literature, we look through biographies and autobiographies of all the people who did it. Martin Luther King, who was sent to prison. when he defied the laws that existed then. This is a law. That's what you spent the beginning of this meeting telling us, is that the reason why you voted yesterday is because it's a law. But we have to stand up to those laws if we think they're wrong and pay the consequences and then stand together and figure it out. I mean, that's what I teach my students. That's what all the teachers here in this county teach their students. We're just asking you to do that too.
Fine, thank you. Thank you for closing that way. Excuse me, I'd like to thank, first of all of you for coming. I appreciate that. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, as I said to you in the beginning of the meeting, Trustee Lindholm and I are working on a document on testing. I will be looking at writing a document on the privacy issues, and that's why please get me that citation. I will investigate the Pacific Justice Institute offer. Okay, there was some, I remember that. There was some question about whether they were going to follow through on that. But my memory is fuzzy on that. That was last October. I will look into that possibility. And I went to this public, on November, the public hearing. I've taken a lot of notes, and I promise you I will address them in what I study and what I look forward to. So thank you all for coming.